Welcome, everyone. It's Anissa here, and thank you for joining us today of our last broadcast of the Academy of Broadcasting. Once again, you are listening to WBPG LP 102.9, Boston Praise Radio FM.
It's Ross here, and for this last broadcast, we wanted to speak to you guys about topics that we noticed happened during the pandemic. This includes the abortion rights, substance abuse in teens, school during the pandemic, police brutality, and Black Lives Matter. And for the first person to present, it will be Brienne talking about abortion rights.
Well, before we get into the protest aspect of abortion rights, we have to look at the political aspect. So on January 22nd, 1973, Roe v. Wade was passed, making abortion protected by the U.S. Constitution, therefore making abortion legal in the U.S. And on June 24th, 2022, Roe v. Wade was overturned due to a leak in the Supreme Court. A draft was leaked from the Supreme Court revealing that they would likely overturn Roe v. Wade this year. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade 5-4 because of conservative anti-abortion judges. And after 50 years of abortion being legal, Roe v. Wade was overturned, allowing states to decide whether or not abortion was legal. Even with this, many states immediately put into effect laws that made abortion almost illegal, meaning that if you were under a certain amount of weeks, you could get it. This may sound good, but there are also states like Kansas where there are people in power like Chris Kobach who believe abortion should be illegal in all cases. The president could do something now about it, but when the next president goes into office, depending on which side they're on, they could just change whatever the current president did. And nothing else can happen in Supreme Court because right now there are more conservative than liberal judges. And being Supreme Court judges for life, meaning those conservative judges could be controlling the Supreme Court for many more years to come. Now, many people right now are upset and outraged, while others are happy that abortions have been banned. For example, some people are upset over the story of a 10-year-old girl in Ohio who found out she was 6 weeks pregnant 3 days after her state banned abortion after 6 weeks. She had to travel to Indiana to get an abortion. Now the doctor who gave her abortion is facing backlash. Have you guys heard of this story or other stories like this?
Yeah, I just heard about it.
Yeah, I have.
I haven't.
Well, this will be interesting then for you. This is just one of many stories of young girls that have had to travel to different places to get an abortion, and not just in the U.S. either. This is why it is not all black and white, and there are a lot of reasons why women get an abortion or choose not to. The United States has become divided between people that are pro-choice and people that are pro-life. And to get the full picture, we have to look at both sides. And then we have to look at a third side, which is the viewpoint of the baby, and whether or not they should have a say on if they are born. For many people pro-life, they believe that women should carry the baby no matter what the circumstances are. While pro-choice people believe women should have the right to choose whether or not they want to have the child. Now, as I said, it is not all black and white, and that when we use the labels pro-life and pro-choice, we are dividing ourselves. Lastly, there is also the viewpoint of the unborn child. And since the child isn't there, that choice goes to the mother, and the mother has to decide if that baby will have a good life if they come into the world. If the mother knows that they won't keep the child, they have to choose if they will allow their baby to go into the foster system or get adopted. Or maybe the mother's life is in danger, or the baby has a sickness and will live a life of pain if brought into the world. No mother wants their child to live a life of pain because no mother just doesn't. And then you could also be that 10-year-old girl who's nowhere near ready to be a mother. And then no one even begins to think about the after effects and how the woman may already have enough mouths to feed or won't be able to get adequate health care for them and their child. This is exactly why it is not all black and white, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding whether or not abortion should or should not be banned. Also, you have to know that being pro-choice doesn't mean that you're pro-abortion. It just means that you believe women should have the choice to decide on whether or not they want an abortion. This conversation has also been ongoing in many other countries around the world, where people are split between pro-choice and pro-life. To close out, Roe v. Wade was a big step in the right direction for women in the U.S. But now, for many, it feels like we have just taken a step back because of Roe v. Wade being overturned. When I first heard about this, as a teen, I was upset, and all I could think about was all the women who are going to be forced to have a child they might not want or have the money to care for, and all the women who get raped and end up pregnant with no idea what to do. Mostly, I thought about the daughters and granddaughters and great-granddaughters that will have to live in a world where their choice will not matter. In all truth, this is not about the politicians sitting at the top of Capitol Hill. It is about us women, us daughters and granddaughters and children. It is about what we want our future to be. And right now, it may feel like all hope is lost, but politicians in a big, nice building can't not decide our fate. Only we can. So before we stop, let's think about the future of our kids and their kids' kids. Change might not happen overnight, but we must keep going if we want a better future for women in this world.
That was amazing, especially about even about the little girl who was 6 weeks pregnant and didn't even know it already had to travel just to get an abortion. So even before I ask the question, are y'all pro-choice or are y'all pro-life?
I'm
Choice.
pro-choice.
Why are you pro-choice?
I think no one should be forced to give birth or should be, especially because nobody knows nobody's situation or circumstances.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I agree. You don't know the circumstances of why. And then there's also, like, how are they going to get the health care because how expensive it is, you know?
And before we move on, you're listening to WBBG LP 102.9 FM Boston Praise Radio. And please call in for any of your opinions about any of our topics at 617-282-7794. That is 617-282-7794. And now I'm going to be passing it on to Khadija too, who will be talking about substance abuse.
I'm sure everybody has heard of substance abuse. If not, it's an excessive use of psychoactive drugs such as alcohol, pain medications, or illegal drugs. It can lead to physical and social or emotional harm. If any of what I just said pertains to you or you know anyone experiencing substance abuse, please call 1-800-662-4357. That is 1-800-662-4357. The Springer Link has many statistics and facts on their website, link.springer.com, which says since the onset of COVID-19, there's been a 23% increase in alcohol abuse and a 16% increase in drug abuse for people who had consumed those substances before the pandemic. People in self-isolation reported a 26% higher consumption than they would normally use to cope. The pandemic has given a rise to concerns about the mental health or social well-being of youth, including its potential to increase or exacerbate substance use behaviors. This systematic review identified and included 49 studies of use across alcohol, cannabis, tobacco, e-cigarettes/vaping, and other drugs, and unspecified substances. The majority of studies across all categories of youth substance use reported reductions in prevalence, except in the case of other drugs and unspecified drug and substance use, which include 3 studies that reported an increase in use and 3 studies that reported a decrease in use. During this time, entire countries, regions, states, cities, and towns have enacted various laws, rules, and guidelines in their efforts to curb the spread of the virus and its impact on human life. Some of them were more drastic measures have included closing borders, lockdowns, curfews, or both in cities and towns. Severe limits on social gatherings and assemblies, religious services, restricted access to work sites, and environment venues and services, restaurants, theaters, and sports events, and mandates for physical or social distancing and wearing face masks, where I feel like everybody has gone through.
Yeah, it's annoying.
In most places, these efforts have included closing off school and restrictions of services for youth, such as sports, clubs, and extracurricular activities, and the prohibition of gatherings. Such extreme measures at the social level are unprecedented in modern times and have not been seen since the influenza pandemic of 1918. This has caused many youth to be lonely and disconnected from friends and family, but also a lot of things that bring joy and comfort to the youth, like the extracurricular activities that I have named. were closed or only limited to a specific amount of kids, which leads some teenagers to drugs for comfort. Something that I realized after the pandemic, substances like cannabis and marijuana have been very easy to access. When taking drugs, it is very clear in the shifts of mood and personality and overall behavioral changes. There are also other changes like the hygiene and appearance, like smell of smoke or other unusual smells on breath or on clothes, and they're messier than usual. There are also many more changes in social life, like relationships and friendships, and a change in their academic status, like a decrease in grades. After everything I just said, I want both adults, parents, and teenagers to wonder why or how an increase in substance abuse in the youth has come about, and what, as a people, a community, to help our kids and get the medical care they deserve and need.
You are listening to WBBG LP 102.9 FM Boston Praise Radio. So after hearing all of this, what are some ways, what are some ways that y'all have experienced that lead people to drugs or teens to drugs?
I think after the pandemic, not after, but during the pandemic, there was a sense of loneliness, and there was a sense of that connection cut off from things that they wanted to do, like kind of like sports. If you couldn't go to basketball because there was a pandemic going on. So, and yeah, so they took, I think they turned to drugs as a way to cope with that. And I feel like it was so normalized on social media and it was glorified. I don't know how to explain it, like the word for it, but it was seen as a trend. And if you weren't doing it, what were you doing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think peer pressure and just like wanting to seem cool, I think that's why like a lot of people turned to it. And then the whole pandemic, they wanted something to cope with.
And again, if any of what I just said pertains to you, or you know anybody experiencing substance abuse, please call 1-800-662-4357. And if you have any questions, comments, or experiences and stories you can tell us, please call us at 617-282-0685. That is 617-282-0685.
So now we're going to be passing it down to Angelica, who will be talking about school during the pandemic.
All right, so like Khadija said, you undergo massive changes throughout high school, but one of the biggest changes has been enduring a pandemic. So we've all spent at least 1 year of school online, and for me personally, that was supposed to be in high school. So all the changes you'd normally go through in high school had to take place online and disconnected from your peers. So I'll share with you the experiences of students in online school and the aftermath of going back to school. So I'm going to start off with Zoom school, which is just basically in spring of 2020 is when school went online for me personally. And so all of the sources that I've collected to get the information to you have come from students reporting their feelings. They've written into two different news sources, being Education Weekly and the New York Times, to report their feelings. So one of the biggest issues that students faced was feelings of depression and loneliness and trouble focusing. And this is mostly a result of that disconnection, feeling detached from the world, even though you're seeing it everywhere because everything is online. You're looking at the news, you're looking at social media, and you're seeing all of this horrible stuff going down. You're seeing your family members get sick. You might have even gotten sick yourself. And you feel detached from everything. You feel like you're kind of just floating in space instead of being actually experiencing the event that's going on. It's a tragedy, really, with the massive loss of life. You're seeing the statistics and you're seeing everything online, but you're not experiencing it personally, and that feeling of detachment. Another thing is not wanting to work and feeling low motivation and low energy, not being interested in assignments. And that's another result of that detachment, as well as not having the school experience that you're supposed to have at that age. So school is a much better learning environment for a lot of people than spending all that time online staring at a screen. That feeling of detachment is all, I keep saying that. The feeling of detachment keeps getting worse because you're looking at a teacher who you're supposed to connect with, who you're supposed to be able to ask questions and interact with, and they're just talking at you behind a screen. And that was absolutely terrible being online. Especially if you have bad teachers in difficult classes, you don't feel motivated to do anything. You don't feel like it has any point really because you're not in school, you're not seeing anything, you're not really seeing all that hard work that you would normally have to put in because it all just feels pointless. So students also have responsibilities at home, like taking care of siblings and cooking and cleaning. And that also would make regular school difficult to concentrate on with things like homework and projects. That would only get further exacerbated because you're in that all the time. You have to constantly take care of your siblings. You have to always be helping your parents or even like working. So for me personally, Zoom school wasn't good. I spent like 6 months of school in person in freshman year, and the last part of the year I spent online, as well as the entirety of my sophomore year. And so online school was incredibly ineffective because in sophomore year I had 2 really bad teachers. We still talk about one of them to this day because she's still here. Well, actually, no, she's not. Something happened to her, but I can't say that. It's a bad learning environment because it's hard to concentrate in school to begin with. I already have a problem with like spacing out and daydreaming during class, but it's so much harder when you don't feel like any of it means anything because you're online, you're not really interacting with anyone. Even if you have friends in the same class, you don't have that experience of being able to like sit next to your friend and ask for help or just talk during a lecture or whatever while you're taking notes. You don't have that high school experience. And so the biggest thing that a lot of people felt was this massive sense of hopelessness. It felt like the world was ending outside because none of us have ever seen this before, and we were still expected to continue business as usual. And it's a pandemic on top of a world that's been feeling more and more turbulent for years, and that's only gotten worse since. So living through that was incredibly, incredibly jarring. So I was a freshman, like I said, in spring 2020. I'm about to be a senior when I go back to school, and that's 3 years of time that has passed, and it feels so weird looking back because I was a little kid, and that feeling you already get that feeling looking back through high school because you changed so much, but because you changed so much, but you already, instead of having that time filled with memories of doing fun high school things, that the experience that you're supposed to have, it's just a gap because nothing happened. So
it's like you're missing something, right?
Yeah, it feels like you missed out. Even though we've all been in school, we all know it was gonna happen. It feels like you missed out on that experience.
Did you get a prom?
I'm going to be a senior.
Oh.
I'm not a senior yet. So I mean, I guess I am. But yeah, we only really expected to be online for a couple weeks at most. But it turned into months and then a full year after that.
Because I can actually relate, because I remember when we first found out that it was like 2 weeks off of school, right? Mm-hmm. It was in April. And then, no, it was May. And then I told my mom we wouldn't have school until April 27th. And she couldn't believe it. She was like, you're lying, because there's no way you have a month off of school. And then, they were just pushing it until it was, well known that there was no more school and it was on Zoom.
Yes, same with me. I had instead of spring break and a winter break, I have 2 weeks in March. So my teacher came up to us and said, well, pack your things from your locker just in case, because he was like, oh, there might be the COVID coming around, but he said it's probably not gonna happen. But like a week into our vacation, they sent an email and said we wouldn't be going to school until like the 1st of May, I think. And yeah, so I was just in the house for a month. So yeah.
I think my teachers were just being unrealistic, except for my one teacher who was like, "Yep, we're gonna be out of school for a lot longer, and so you better pack up your stuff." Because
Yeah.
it was my science teacher, and he was like, "Yeah,
my
it's
science
not gonna
teacher
take
too.
2 weeks to make things for it and everything."
Because I feel like they were downplaying it, kind of like, you know, the former president was. He was gaslighting people and downplaying what,
The entire situation.
yeah, he was downplaying the entire situation. And I feel like I missed out a lot. I feel like I missed out a lot. And when coming back to school, it was like nobody knew each other, even though we did know each other. And there was barely any talking. We had masks on our face. It was weird. You didn't know what other people looked like, especially if you're going to a new school. You didn't know what nobody looked like until they took off their mask and stuff like that. So
I can relate too because like, it was my birthday when we went into
No,
when we
mine
went
too.
into-
I it was my birthday like a month before.
Oh my gosh. But we stopped school and there was like the whole thing going on, and then it was like my birthday came up and I was like, what am I supposed to do? I can't have a party. I
Yeah.
can't invite my friends over. I couldn't even get a cake, and I was like, wow, this is just
you couldn't get a cake.
Yeah, because like all the stores and stuff are closed. I was kind of just sitting in the house on my birthday. My mom and my family couldn't get me presents. The only way I could talk to them was through a phone call, and I was like, wow, this is just the worst birthday.
I still invited all my family.
I did the same thing.
Right, yeah, I think the pandemic had a huge effect on everybody.
It did.
Not just like with birthdays and celebrations and gatherings and academic wise too. I know a lot of people's grades was decreasing.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm a good student, but oof, that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, we saw a lot of big crazy moments. We saw the biggest civil rights movement since like the 60s. We saw the January 6th riot. That was wild. We saw oh, that was a mess.
And it's like because you're not there either. You're just watching everything behind
it's
the
like,
screen.
what is
Yeah,
this
exactly.
craziness?
It's like you're watching life go on outside your window. And
Right. It's like
Wait, what
we.
was the January 6th?
When
The-
they raided the
Right.
White House.
No, it was
Well,
the White
yeah.
House. It was Capitol Hill.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's my bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And- continue.
I'm sorry. I'm just want to get through this section. More events that keep piling up. We saw a presidential election. I don't know why anybody acted like Joe Biden wasn't gonna win, but anyway,
Yo, I was so hyped when he won. I don't know.
I wasn't hyped. I was just like, we could have square one basically. It feels like as a generation that we really can't get a break, and we're just expected to
Yeah.
carry on like life is normal.
And we're told that we're the future, but you guys haven't set up the future.
But it's like,
to
what are
better
we
us.
supposed to do?
Right.
Like,
Like,
okay,
we've been
I'm
living
18 in
our
6 months. That doesn't mean anything. What am I gonna do?
You got to go party.
Oh, maybe not with monkeypox. I don't know.
Yeah. there's
Oh, that too. Anyway, okay, I'm not talking about that. Have to perform as if the world doesn't feel like it's on fire. Like we were
Right.
told since we were kids that we're gonna be the ones to solve climate change. We didn't do that. That's not our fault.
Low-key getting worse.
Oh, okay. And then coming back to school, there was no safety net. There was no transition. It was like, okay, you're off Zoom now. Go do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, like go back to school, like but it was before, as if.
It wasn't. It's not.
Right.
It's not. I had to take an AP test online. I can't. Never again. Never again. Being thrown back into school, you get stressed out. You have to work again, and you still have to maintain your grades. You still have to do all that normal school stuff. Mind you, there's still a pandemic going on. You can't. You may be seeing people in person. You're in school. Yeah, it's slightly better, but it's still high school. I know most of y'all ain't in high school yet, which is weird. But no, you're like, why are you 14? Stop being 14. But like looking back, I don't know if I said this already, but you feel like a different person. Like there's just so much stuff that has happened already, and because you're already growing up too, you're a different person.
Yeah,
looking
'cause
back
I feel
than
like-
you are now. That's supposed to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But like, it's weird.
I know. I feel like high school, you're meant to like find who you are and kind of change and make
Yeah,
mistakes.
you're supposed to change.
Yeah,
But, like,
and during the pandemic, you weren't really given that chance, and if you did change, you came back as a different person. It was hard to interact with people as your new self.
That's another thing that the studies the studies I read reported was that people feel like they had to rebuild their social skills. They had to rebuild their ways to interact with people outside of their immediate family. And because it's high school and people were starved for drama for a year, like, as I'm not someone who gets involved, but I ended up getting dragged in the past year. And sophomore year is difficult in general, but sophomore year is the time where all that high school stuff goes down. If it didn't happen before, it was going to happen then. And it was so weird because I'm not someone who gets involved in drama. I mind my business. I know what's going on, but I mind my business. And because everyone was so starved for drama and for attention, people were just causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, junior's already stressful. I had to take my PSAT. I had to take my SAT. I got to take it again. I had to take AP exams. There's too much going on.
Yeah, they didn't make the transition easy.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so 2020 seniors had a lot of stuff. Were given a lot of slack because it was a pandemic, obviously. But I'm graduating this year. None of that is there for me, even though all of this is still going on. Like, it feels like there's no support for us. And I'm not surprised that people are turning to substance abuse, like vaping and stuff, because we all feel that stuff isn't working. And at least you have some freedom and some control in that, you know? So
I know, because there's, I feel like people don't really know.
Okay, so you're listening to WBPG LP 102.9 FM radio. You can call in at 617-282-0685. And I'm at the end of my section, so I want to ask, how do y'all feel about going back to school in virtual school?
Man, I miss virtual school.
Y'all just saying that because y'all introverts. That's the only reason why you're saying that.
Me too. I was depressed. I'm not going back to that.
No,
I
but
don't
like
wanna go
for
either.
me, it was like I got up late too. I got to sleep in.
Okay,
Then
that's the only part I miss, sleeping
I got to
in.
eat while I was like in my Zoom meetings. I didn't have to have my camera on. No one had to see me. I could have my crazy hair. I got my pajama pants on. You know.
Right.
So like there was a lot. No.
Go to school with pajama pants on.
I could literally sit on my couch, but while listening to my class, there was nothing. I didn't have to sit at a desk full of a class of people with all their germs.
Cosign.
Well, that's you. Had me. I'm gonna turn up.
I think I need that interaction. I need that that contact with people. 'Cause I feel like during the pandemic it was super lonely. There was nothing to do. The only thing I do like was I was able to stay in my pajamas. I didn't have to do my hair every morning. I didn't have to wake up so early. Because I hate waking up early. I am not a morning person. I will say that now. I am not a morning person.
Who is a morning person?
For real. I feel
Me.
like if you're a morning person, I feel like you're lying. I need to see
I get
you.
up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like,
No, there's no.
You get up 7 o'clock in the morning right now. Like now.
Yes.
In the summer?
Why?
I don't
Why?
know. I
My
just
grandma
do.
gets up
Why?
at 5:45 in the morning every day.
Why?
Because she's like, I don't know, and she stays up till like 2 in the morning watching TV too.
Why?
I don't know.
Nah, bro. I'm not even gonna get into that morning person stuff.
And I feel like that drugs helps release that stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And a lot of kids do self-medicate. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of things that kids go through in their home lives that nobody knows about, or there's just like that type of stress there. And using drugs is helping them self-medicate. And I think they do need that help and that support system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, you are listening to WVPG LP 102.9 FM radio. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 617-282-6085. That again is 617-282-0685.
So I got another question for y'all. What are you looking forward to this year, and what are you dreading?
Graduating.
See, look. For real, everybody is getting forward to leave. Like, whenever I leave school, I feel so relieved.
No, because that's a problem with school. Because why do so many of us hate it?
Right.
Different question, but
Right.
carry
Am I
on.
the only one that be liking school?
Yes.
Me too.
Anissa, bro, you're a
Okay.
morning person and you like school. Bro.
I
Because
don't
it's
know,
just
bro.
fun,
I
like,
don't-
to
I-
get teachers upset and stuff like that.
Oh
See,
my
like
God.
you go to school.
Yeah,
You going to school for the wrong reason.
I like school because I want to get. I like raising my grades. I actually like the tests and the studying and all
All
of that.
right, see, you going a little
See, no,
I
think
like
about
school,
me.
but I don't like the education part. I don't like sitting in the
Yeah,
classroom
yeah,
having the
yeah.
teacher.
See,
No,
I like
that's not.
learning, but I don't like school.
If it's interesting,
Right.
if I have like interest in it, then it's fun. Like biology, I was surprised. I actually like biology.
Ugh, seriously?
What?
Yeah, I like science. I like
I
science.
like science too. I was
history
surprised.
and ELA. Those are my
Biology's
two
fun.
classes.
I like ELA and
Math
history too.
science.
Yeah, I feel like if it's interesting, then yeah, I'm gonna pay attention. It's gonna be fun for me. I'm not gonna feel like I'm doing work. But if it's not fun,
School is
mm-mm.
Like math.
Yeah, okay, I like math. Don't do that.
Nah,
I like
math,
math.
nah,
math is
Algebra
kinda
is
mid.
it. Algebra is it.
Math is kind of mid.
No. 'Cause
Wow.
Wait till you get to what did I take last year? I take pre-calculus. Wait till you get to that.
I don't. Okay, I don't like calculus. I like algebra. I'm an
My
algebra.
brain be hurting in the middle of doing math.
No,
I
because when
just
you
stop
start getting
and
a
it's like-
headache in the middle of your math homework, no.
Nah,
In the
bro.
middle of the math test. Yeah.
See, bro, I stopped liking math when, letters started getting involved. That's when I stopped liking math.
Like
Whoever
X
put
and stuff.
letters in
Nah,
math, just exit. Like,
The thing is, though,
Exit stage
I
left,
don't
please.
like math, but I ended up having the highest grade in my class in math, and it was crazy. And I was like,
Well, look
But
at
I
you.
don't
Yo,
like
that's
this.
crazy.
it was just, and then like all the other classes. But don't you like history though?
Yeah, I
Don't
like
you
Okay,
history.
history, because this year, my ninth grade history class. Shout out to my ninth grade history teachers. I had two of them. They were really good. They didn't just teach me like the whitewashed versions of history. They taught me literally everything. Which I like.
If that's what you want, don't take AP US history. Don't take it.
No, the only thing I
If
like
you're
about
listening
history
right
is
now, and you
bashing
gotta go to
about
high
it.
school. Don't take AP US. Don't do it. It's
Why?
not worth it. Cause it's terrible.
Why?
It's okay. So it depends on the teacher a lot. My teacher was, but it has that problem with painting over history where you don't get really in depth with a lot of stuff. And that was my least favorite class last year. I did okay in it, but so if you like history, pick something that you're interested in. History is only good when it's stuff that you want to learn, because outside of that, it's just war crimes and
Right.
genocide.
Yeah.
You know what I liked it about this year? Shout out to my ELA and my ELA and my history teacher, because like they should have switched classes. Because my history teacher was always teaching us like ELA stuff. Like we were always writing papers and stuff for her class. And I
Yeah,
actually-
me too.
I
History
like-
is
No,
just
that
ELA
is
light.
facts.
But then ELA, my teacher, she always taught us like real world issues. Like she taught us about the Holocaust, which I had never learned about before that.
What?
Yeah.
When did you learn about the Holocaust?
Yo, no, they made us read books about the Holocaust and all of that.
I
and
learned
then,
the Holocaust
Wait,
when I
y'all
was
mean
in
you
fourth
didn't
grade.
have to read the Diary of Anne Frank in
Nah,
sixth
we
grade?
did. We did.
I
We did.
still
We
never
did.
learned about
We
the
did.
Holocaust.
We
Say
did.
you
That's the
swear.
problem.
World
I
War
know
II?
what it is, but I never learned
We
about
did.
it.
You gotta. It's kind of a dark history.
Yeah.
My sixth grade teacher, like, she was Jewish, so all she did was just like bash on Nazis and like
Yeah, she
all
should.
of that. And I agreed, but like we had a German exchange student. and she didn't really like. We're not gonna get into that. We're not gonna get
See,
into that.
no.
Okay.
Nah, but
okay.
next-
Back on the topic.
Yeah,
on the
now
topic.
Anissa.
Like, we traced up a little bit. Okay, Anissa.
Yeah, now Anissa's gonna be talking about police brutality.
Alright, so I know how much y'all don't like my jokes.
Lord.
But I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a few jokes for y'all. So, here's my first one.
She has more than one.
What happened to the pirate that tried to recite the alphabet?
Oh gosh.
R.
R
He only
something.
said R.
He got lost at sea.
Oh my god.
What is?
Yo, y'all know that's funny. Oh
No,
my
it's
God.
not.
Alright, second one. What was it called when the inmate tried to take his own mugshot?
Oh no, picture there.
His selfie.
You get it?
Good.
I don't get it.
They're in the cell. Like,
Wait, I don't get it.
selfie.
Oh, gosh.
Well, you have to pay.
Selfie.
Wait,
The cell.
You have to pay for your cell.
What?
You said
Where
a
did you
cell
get that
fee.
from?
Cell. The cell they're in. Their cell.
Like, what is it
Jail
called
cell?
when inmate try to take their own mugshot? A selfie.
They're in the jail
Like
cell.
jail cell.
Don't even explain it
So
to
where
them.
does where does the fee get involved?
It doesn't. It's just
Cause
So
like
it's just
a
one
regular,
cell.
you know what? Whatever.
That
So
joke was funny.
anyway, police brutality has been a thing common in the black community, especially amongst young African American men and boys. If you haven't been educated on the matter, police brutality is the excessive and unwarranted use of force by law enforcement against an individual or group. It is an extreme form of police misconduct and it is a civil rights violation. Y'all know what police brutality is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
We
I
black,
feel like
we
if you
know.
haven't, if you don't know what police brutality is,
Where have you been?
you need to go look on the news because I feel like it's everywhere now.
No,
Like you
I'm
can't
serious.
escape
You are
police
gated
brutality.
if you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You
Like-
must have. You know. What's his name from SpongeBob? You know his house. That's where you were living.
Under a
All
rock.
right.
Shout
Patrick,
Shout out
you
Patrick.
were
Shout out
roommating with
Patrick.
Patrick.
you're
If you don't know what
Shout
that
out,
is.
shout out Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
You're living under a rock if you don't know what police brutality is.
Ah, I get it.
But for real, even my little cousin knows about it. Bro, that is not a good joke, bro. That's not a good joke.
I used to be lying, Brian. Stop the
Nah,
cap.
bruh. Anissa's joke was funnier than that one.
You didn't even understand it.
I understood the first one,
Okay, you didn't laugh.
so
It was funny. All right.
there was like 1% of me that thought it was okay.
Y'all trying to downplay my jokes. I don't appreciate
Get
that.
better jokes.
Oh,
jokes were not bad.
It's endearing how bad they are.
oh, me personally,
Yo, catch me outside. Bro. Alright, anyways, police brutality includes, but it is not limited to, beatings, shootings, improper takedowns, and unwarranted use of tasers. Though police brutality unfortunately has been going on for decades, the first major riot occurred in 1992 because of the brutal beating of Rodney King. Do y'all know?
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
On March 3rd, Rodney King was a victim of police brutality after a high-speed chase. After a high-speed chase for driving while intoxicated on the highway. A bystander happened to record the event from his balcony and sent it to the local news station, KTLA. And the video shows unarmed Rodney King being beaten by 4 police officers with batons for several minutes. The aftermath resulted in Mr. King with a broken right leg in a cast, his face badly cut and swollen, bruises on his body, and a burn area to his chest, where he had been shocked with a stun gun. As he talked to a reporter, he described that he had cooperated as to not make any stupid moves, but they still continued to hit him across the face with a billy club. He stated that he was scared for his life. Many were relieved that Mr. King was alive, but as for the police, everyone wanted justice. The 4 officers were eventually tried for the use of excessive force, and the verdict of 3 of them was not guilty. And for the 4th, the jury failed to reach a verdict on 1 charge. April 29th of 1992, within hours after the acquittal, riots began. They lasted 6 days, killing 63 people, and more than 2,383 people were injured. The riot ended by the California Army National Guard coming in to restore order. A movie to watch more would be LA 92, where more footage is shown of these riots. And speaking of movies, there's a few movies that I've seen that touch the topic of police brutality, including The Hate U Give. Have y'all seen that?
Mm-hmm.
I read the book. I did not see the
I
movie.
think everybody read the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the book is better than the movie.
Yeah, it is.
Who's surprised though? That's always how it is.
Yeah. Fruitvale Station. Have y'all seen that one?
No.
That's with Michael B. Jordan, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah. I've seen that, but I was like young.
I watched like little clips of it, but I didn't watch.
Wait, is that the one where he's like a lawyer?
No, they kill him like
No.
Police brutality is
Whoa.
the movie where
Kill
he's
him.
police
Yeah.
brutality.
Okay.
he gets shot, right? Like or something.
Yeah, he gets shot.
Yeah.
And Two
Rest in
Distant
peace.
Strangers. Have y'all seen that one?
No.
The one. Y'all haven't seen that?
Have you?
Where
Explain it to me.
Yeah.
where
Like, I can't say his name, but like
the man he relives his day.
Yeah, he relives the day, like he keeps dying and then he keeps reliving
I've
Yeah,
never
and he
seen
keeps
it, but
running
I know
into
what you're
this
talking
an
about.
officer, right?
And the same officer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, but police brutality doesn't only happen to black men, and it isn't only happening to black men, but it also happens to black women. On March 13th of 2020, Breonna Taylor was shot and killed in a police raid. Have y'all heard about that?
Yes.
Again, rock. If you don't know
you
what
live under
happened,
a
then
rock.
come on.
Yeah. There was already another raid happening on the other side of town at her ex-boyfriend's house in search of drugs, which were found at his house. Officers brought up the thought that Miss Taylor might be stashing drugs or hiding drugs at her house for her ex-boyfriend, which led to the thought, oh, let's go to her house and search. So 7 police officers showed up to the apartment. Allegedly, they were banging on the door waiting for Miss Taylor to answer, but they had not announced themselves yet. And while they were waiting, a man by the name of Aaron Sarpy entered the situation by leaving his house and being nosy and asking the police officers what they were doing, but they asked him to go back inside of his house, so he did. And meanwhile, Mrs. Taylor and her new current partner, Kenneth Walker, were in the apartment scared about the anonymous banging, but saying, who is it? And Mr. Walker says that they were practically screaming, and another officer says that he could hear them, but they still didn't respond, saying that they were police. The officers...
That's bad. I feel like that part's on them.
Yeah, it is on them because
Yeah,
they
it
didn't
is.
really announce themselves.
Yeah.
So. The officers claim that they continued the banging. Now they claim that they were announcing themselves, but the tenants living in the apartments above them, next to them, said that they didn't hear them announce themselves at all. They then proceeded to knock the door off his hinges, and Mr. Walker says that he was still unaware that they were police, so he aimed down by the leg because he wasn't trying to kill anyone, and he said that it was dark, so he couldn't see the badges or the police vests or anything. He hit one officer in the leg, and the officer fell to the ground, taking cover, but another officer stepped into the doorway. And the second officer claims that he never even shot into the apartment. He said that he saw a blinding white in darkness, but he never had any hand sensation or any recollection of firing into the home, though his bullets were the ones that were fatal and killed Miss Taylor. The police weren't aware that Mr. Walker was in the house, nor were they aware that Miss Taylor had a new partner or new boyfriend. In total, the police shot 32 bullets, 28 into the home, 2 into the apartment left of them, and 2 into the ceiling apartment. Only this year were 6 officers charged for violating the rights of Miss Taylor and lying about the search warrant, and 1 officer was acquitted of the charge of endangering her neighbors' lives. In summary, history does repeat itself from 1992, from the Rodney King riot, to 2020, to the riots that had happened before. And police brutality is still happening, sadly, and clearly something needs to change within law enforcement.
But I got a question. So they weren't charged with like no first, second, or third degree murder.
No.
None. That's
So
what?
I'm confused on how the police come up with that conclusion that Miss Taylor had drugs in her house
Because
for
they
her
thought,
ex.
what they thought was that the boyfriend, they thought that the ex-boyfriend and her were still together. So they were, I guess they had came up with this idea.
So they assumed
that Miss Taylor had the drugs, and she was also hiding drugs in her house, but she wasn't. They found no drugs in her house.
They didn't have a warrant?
I think they had lied about it. I don't think they had a real warrant to search her house.
That's
Not
crazy.
even with the warrant. It's just the fact. Why were they trying to be sneaky? Like, even when they weren't even presenting themselves, like when they were banging on the door, they didn't say not once they were police until like.
They claimed that they did after banging on the door a few times, and then, but the tenants around them said that they didn't. They
All right.
didn't hear that.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a question from Facebook, and the question is, do you feel pressured to find yourselves in high school? No.
No, because I feel
Nope.
like you should always go at your own pace, and if somebody's forcing you to change, or you know what I'm saying, like find yourself and who you are as a person, cut them off.
Well, here's the thing. people are always changing. Who you are in high school is not going to be who you are coming out of college. So I feel like self-discovery is just an ongoing process because you're always changing. And it's like, I am 17. I'm just here trying to live my life and graduate. Like, I know more about myself definitely than when I was a freshman, obviously, but that's a process that kind of happens naturally, you know?
Again, we are WPPG LP 102.9 FM radio. Sorry.
Feel into
Yeah, you said
calling.
that fast.
Yeah, feel free to comment or question on our lives. We're at 617-282-0685. We have our last section, which is a recording from Jada, who isn't here physically, but we have her part recorded so you can hear what she has to say.
For those who don't know, the Black Lives Matter movement started in 2013 when 3 Black female organizers named Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi created a Black-centered political will and a movement-building project called #Black Lives Matter. This hashtag began on social media and online news platforms from the response of the murder of Trayvon Martin, murderer named George Zimmerman, back in 2012. Since then, it has established itself as a worldwide movement, particularly after the death of George Floyd. On May 25th, Minneapolis police officers arrested George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, after a convenience store employee called 911 and told the police that Mr. Floyd had bought cigarettes with a counterfeit $20 bill. Within 17 minutes after the first squad car arrived at the scene, Mr. Floyd was unconscious and pinned beneath 3 police officers showing no signs of life. While this was happening, bystanders captured the video of the officer behind a police car using his knee to pin Mr. Floyd by his neck. And in the video, Mr. Floyd is heard repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe." The day after George Floyd's death, the Minneapolis police chief, Madera Arellano, had fired all 4 men involved in the arrest of Mr. Floyd, along with the call-in for an FBI investigation after seeing different points of view of the video of George Floyd. Later that day, hundreds of protesters flooded into Minneapolis streets, where some demonstrators vandalized police cars with graffiti and targeted the houses where the 4 officers had been inside in the following days. As a response, officers used tear gas and fired rubber bullets into the crowds, and some businesses, including restaurants and auto parts stores, were set on fire. However, these protests weren't the only in the city of Minneapolis, but in all cities across the U.S. There was demonstrators in other cities, including Los Angeles and Memphis, who started to march in outrage, and not only over the death of Mr. Floyd, but also Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, and Ahmaud Arbery in Brooksville, Georgia. On May 29th, former officer Derek Chauvin gets arrested and charged with Mr. Floyd's death. He was charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter and faces a maximum of 35-year sentence. On June 3rd, all 4 officers involved in the incident were charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. Both felonies, court records show. Chauvin also received an additional second-degree murder charge, a felony, according to court records. In June of 2021, after a trial of 3 weeks, Derek Chauvin was sentenced to 22 and a half years, and the 3 former Minneapolis police officers, Thomas Lane, Sue Thao, and J. Alexander Kang, were then charged in February of 2022.
Okay, go.
Even though the officers involved in George Floyd's case were charged, there still has been numerous police violence situations that happened. As a teen, seeing all these black people...
How come they were charged like that, but for killing Miss Taylor, they weren't charged like that? That doesn't... I mean...
I feel like more after the after George Floyd's death, you know, it was a clear video. He was yelling, he couldn't breathe. You couldn't argue with 4K. Like, you couldn't argue with that.
Yeah, right.
And because of that video and it spread worldwide, there was so much pressure applied. If, you know, George Floyd's killer didn't get the charges and he wasn't, you know, charged and he wasn't put in prison, then
Yeah.
there'd be more problems.
That's the other thing too, because George Floyd was not the only one that was had that same outrage about him at that time.
Yeah.
Because there was Ahmaud Arbery, there was Breonna Taylor. It felt like every week there was a new case of this
Right.
because
There wa-
everything was so
yes.
visible, and it's like, where's the accountability? You know, because unless you keep up with it for years, because
A
I
common
heard just yesterday that the people who killed Ahmaud Arbery were just charged, and it was 2 years. Unless you're following for such a long time, you don't see it, and we need to do this quicker, and it needs to happen quicker. It needs to be just as visible, you know, as the brutality of killing a black man in the street, you know.
And I feel like a common pattern isn't just a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you can't be like, oh, it just happened again. Let's move on.
It's a problem with policing in general,
Yeah.
because it's not a few bad apples. Everybody says that, but the police literally come from slave catchers. Why are we surprised that this is happening?
Right. Exactly. I remember there was a civil rights I'm sorry, he was a part of the Black Panther Party. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but he said back in the 60s and the 70s it felt like the Ku Klux Klan were trading in their sheets for police uniforms. It was like immediate.
Because he was right.
Yeah, he was right. It was like immediate brutality into that, and he was gunned down in his own apartment, fast asleep, and they shot him 3 times while he was sleeping in his own house. So,
I
yeah.
feel like police, they abuse their
Power.
And their enforcement. Like, not even just with police brutality. Like, the police will just be speeding with their lights on in the street, having nowhere to go. And, like, I feel like they really do abuse their power.
Yo, I saw that. I saw a guy. He put his lights on, and I saw him pull into a Wendy's drive-thru.
Like they feel like their status gives them immunity to being held accountable.
Yeah,
think
they don't take integrity. They don't have integrity for what the things that they do.
I feel like they not all policemen. I feel like there's a lot of police out there that are actually trying to change the system, but
Right.
majority, I feel like they think they're above the law,
Mm-hmm.
which makes them feel like they can do whatever they want, which is obviously not the case. Because
The
if I was
whole
the
policing system needs
Yeah.
to be changed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
police in other countries aren't even armed. They're not armed.
They're
There's a
not.
problem
Wow,
with
yeah.
the amount of training that
yeah,
police
or
get.
they just have a taser on them.
Exactly. The fact that the police are less trained than a hairdresser.
Uh-huh.
Yo.
And have like guns and all these other weapons that they can use.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's even some cases like there's been police officers who like say they were like bullied in high school or something. They'd go like into the police academy and all of that, and then they'd go like
Just for pure revenge.
just for pure revenge, go like torture, like make that person's life.
Oh, and the fact that so
Even
many
harder.
policemen are ex-military as well. That's not a coincidence.
Right.
I feel like there needs to be more of a secure system for who can be a police officer
Mm-hmm.
and who can be put in that type of, facility, if that makes sense, and put in that job.
More training.
'Cause I feel
Just the
like-
training
yeah.
in general.
Better
I feel like
checks for
police-
who we're putting in power.
Yeah.
Limit the power as well because
If you're handing out
It's always
these
gonna get
jobs
abused,
to
that's the thing.
everybody, it's going to be easier for somebody to get hurt, if that makes sense. And you don't know who's in power, because there could be a police officer who's not stable,
exactly.
and they're given that job to have the power to be able to do whatever they want.
I thought police went through they had to
Police academy?
yeah, and they
Yeah,
wrestled and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they
But I
have
feel like-
less training in terms of hours than a hairdresser does. It's not enough. They need to be trained better,
Yeah.
and they need to have more of it as well.
Like hairdressers get paid like as a profession, You have to be perfect in like what hair you're doing.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
because
'cause
you're
people
messing
will
with
get
people's
upset.
bodies.
Right.
Police officers mess with people's lives. That's not a. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have another question from Facebook. We also have 5 minutes left, so we got to make this one quick. So this person says that one thing I noticed: young people seem to have become vocal. Has your summer experience made you all more aware, and what's in our future?
I feel. Who wants to go first? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
And can we all make a difference?
Wait, can you repeat that one more
Okay,
time? Sorry.
I'm talking fast, I'm sorry. So, one thing that this person notices is that young people have seemed to become more vocal. Has our summer experience made us all aware? What's in our future? And do we think we can make a difference?
Well, I think that this has definitely made me more vocal and to like speak up about like different issues. And then, what was the second part?
Is there a change?
Can we make a
change,
difference?
Yeah.
Well, I think we can make a change because they may say like because they always say like we're the kids of the future, we're the people of the future, and I think that when we really actually put our minds to it and really try hard enough, if we actually have the desire to try and go out there and make a change, we can really do it if we just try.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
Even with this job, it gives you an opportunity to talk about it in front of other people. Like, even with the mental health, even when we were talking about music, it's just bringing our opinions and some of the opinions of young people
To light.
to light and to
not
other
at our
generations.
age, all we can really do is speak about it. But
Right.
we have a voice. So
And I feel like if no one's talking for us, like if we're not talking, no one's gonna talk for us.
yeah.
And I feel like our voice needs to be projected a lot more.
Okay, so one last question. What are your thoughts on the new Boston Police Commissioner taking on a position leading the police force he was once abused by?
I think if he's doing it for the right reasons, perfect, 100%. Because he's been through the hard times and the hardships, right? So he knows what's wrong with the system, and he knows exactly what to do to change it. And yeah,
That's how people make a change.
yeah, that's how going through the hardships and going through the bad times is how people make a change.
See, I'm glad that he decided to get into the system to change it, because that's one of the only options that we have available to us now.
Yeah.
So, one last minute. This was our last broadcast. Thank you so much if you've been watching us throughout the summer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for
Right.
listening.
And this is WBBG LP 102.9 FM radio.
Yo, she be saying it with a speed run.
And thank you for watching one last time. It was great hearing from all of you.
Yeah,
It was
Right.
great being with all of y'all.
This was
Right.
a good
And your
experience.
jokes.
So one last goodbye. I'm Angelica. Anissa. So one last goodbye. I'm Angelica. Thank you for listening.
I'm Anissa. Thank you for listening.
I'm Ross. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is Brienne. I'm Ross.
I'm Khadijah too, obviously your favorite broadcaster.
And this is
No! That is wild.
But this has been the Academy of Broadcasting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.